In this video tutorial, you will learn how to complete the recommended special education programs and services section. So you're going to hover over this area here. You're going to choose recommended special education programs and services. And you're going to scroll down a little bit to where it says special education program and services. So this is where you're going to add all the ICT services for the student. Now it depends on whether they receive sets, full-time ICT, part-time ICT, how you're going to complete this section. But typically, if a student has ICT services that are full-time, which is the majority of our kids who have IEPs, you would fill it out like so. You choose the subject, so everyone, just for the core subjects, for example, for math, it would be underneath service delivery, it would be group, because they're in a whole class. You would choose English. They have 8 periods of math a week. You don't need to worry about that pop-up. And make sure you put per week and not per day, because that would just be way too many periods of math if it was per day. And now here you're only going to put the projected beginning date of service, which should be the date of the IEP meeting. Do not complete the service end date, because that would actually end the service in SESIS, and it messes with the funding for our children with IEP. So make sure you're only completing the projected beginning service dates. Notice up here too that it says recommended for ESL only or not recommended for ESL bilingual. If you see this pop up, you need to make sure you click ESL only if the child is a student who receives ESL services. So back to the special education program services. Now I'm going to choose ICT, and I'm going to do the next subject. So after math, I'm going to do ELA. Now, this is where it gets different depending on the different grades. If you are a 6th grade student, you're going to be receiving group services, English, but 11 times per week. Again, this is only if you're in 6th grade, because they count the ELA 2 in 6th grade as English. And then it's also in the general education classroom, and the same start date, 9/9. Now, if you were 7th or 8th grade, it would only be 8 periods a week. So it really depends, because they count those 3 extra periods for ELA 2 as social studies. So if you're a 6th grader, you do not need to add social studies ICT services, because you already factored it in underneath ELA. If you are a 7th or 8th grader, you need to also add in social studies. Again, it's a group service. It's spoken in English. They meet 3 times per week. And it has the same start date. You want to make sure all your start dates are exactly the same. Okay, and then ICT, we need to add science. And all grades have science 6 periods a week. So again, we're going to do group, we're going to do English, and we're going to do 6 times a week. General education classroom, same start date. Okay. Now, if the student's also receiving related services, this is where the related service provider should put in their information for whether or not it's an individual or a group service. So you don't need to fill this part out, but just make sure it's complete before submitting the IEP to me for approval. So you see OT, counseling, there's speech, all different kinds of services students might have, but those are the 3 most popular ones in middle school. If the student has a paraprofessional, you would find them under this section, Supplementary Aids and Services Program. So in that case, you would choose paraprofessional, and you would need to choose why they need a paraprofessional. So whether it's for health, crisis management, transportation, toileting, or orientation and mobility. All the kids in our building are either have crisis management paras or health paras. And so once you fill out that selection, you need to put what type of health need it is. If it's a group service or an individual service, you obviously need to specify. So maybe it's a kid who has severe allergies, and you'd put whether or not if the para is full-time or maybe only half the day. And then also the start date. Again, the start date needs to be the same. And then this section here, Assistive Technology. So if you have a student maybe that needs a laptop full-time or maybe a magnifier, this is where you would put that in. So a laptop would fall under portable word processor. And you need to complete this information. So this is typically an individual service. It's typically daily. And this again would be daily. Location would be academic classrooms. And the same start date. So once you've completed all of this information, you want to double check yourself with the full-time ICT by counting the number of periods. So you should always have about 25 periods to make sure that you are correct. And then you would hit Save, Done Editing, and move on to your next section.